In this second module, entitled The Lived Experience, we'll focus on 4 areas of learning. Changes in the brain and how this may impact an individual. We'll look at the physical, social and psychological effects of dementia. We discuss how the world may be experienced differently, with special consideration given to the senses, how the environment might make us feel. We'll also consider reality as perceived by an individual, and if different from our own, which is right, and does it matter? In Module 1, we looked at the effects of dementia on the brain's ability to process information. We'll now look at 2 very specific areas of the brain, the hippocampus and the amygdala. The hippocampus is the Greek word for seahorse or sea monster, and it's the part of the brain responsible for factual short-term memory, information like names, dates, places. It's also responsible for helping the brain store a longer-term memory. In many cases, it's the hippocampus that's affected by dementia first, and subsequently short-term memory loss may be one of the first symptoms experienced. Let's move on to look at the amygdala, an almond-shaped area located in the temporal lobe. It's responsible for our emotional memory and is often unaffected by dementia even during the later stages of the disease. So for a person living with dementia, having access to factual information may become difficult, but accessing the emotional content of that memory may still be possible.
I won't remember the place, but I will remember the smells and the sound, and it can trigger a memory that I have forgotten, but that memory will trigger the feel-good factor, and it'll put the smile on my face. And someone will say, "What are you smiling about?" And I'll think, "No, I was a place, can't remember where it was, but oh God, did I have a good time."
Consider how you might feel if people around you are constantly saying, "Don't you remember? Have you forgotten? You remember who I am, don't you?" If your short and long-term factual memory has been impaired, you've not stored that memory, so to you the event didn't happen. Yet people around you could be constantly contradicting and correcting you. It might make you feel confused or frightened, frustrated, maybe even angry. And the more you're corrected, the more that affects you. What is important, regardless of how much factual information is retained by the person, is to be able to live in the moment, ensuring the individual feels safe and happy and content in the here and now. Think about your emotional memories as being within a bookcase, and each shelf is a category and each book is an individual emotional memory. One shelf might contain emotional memories of people you really don't like, maybe an unsupportive teacher or a bully. Another shelf might contain emotional memories of people that made you feel safe, like parents, grandparents, partners, friends. Let's consider a situation. You're supporting a person living with dementia. You're a caring person who wants to provide positive support. However, upon meeting you, the person living with dementia experiences an unexpected emotional connection towards you. Something about you reminds them of that bully from their school days. It could be an accent, a mannerism, your name, maybe even the clothes you're wearing. They might be feeling, "Why is this person here? What are they going to do to me?" Their dementia might make it difficult for them to find the words to describe how they're feeling. So instead of asking you who you are or could you leave, they might shout, swear, become frightened, or show some other signs they're just not happy to see you. It's difficult to not take this type of rejection personally, but we need to move forward with understanding and without reproach. Maybe we try another day, but if the response is the same, it could be better to find an alternative person to provide that support. An emotional connection is not always a negative one. You may have a very positive response and be greeted as if you've been firm friends for many years. Each person you support is an individual and each response is unique to that person. The aim is for us to always put the person first and foremost. After receiving a diagnosis of dementia, a whole range of emotions can be experienced. Feelings of grief, anger, shock, fear, even relief actually at finding the symptoms I'm experiencing have a name. But negative feelings can leave a person feeling depressed, anxious, with a lack of motivation and lethargy. A person also may have to deal with the stigma that unfortunately still surrounds a diagnosis. Other people may start to treat them very differently. Friends and family may stop visiting as they find the symptoms difficult to understand, not knowing how to respond. I want to remember him as he was, and he doesn't remember my visits, are common reactions from friends and family. And these reactions are understandable, but they can lead to reduced social interaction and isolation. People may speak only to the supportive carer or partner, as though the person with dementia is no longer able to take part in a conversation, or even invisible. Feelings of not being in control or questioning one's own abilities can lead to a real lack of confidence and low self-esteem. We need to help existing relationships to continue to thrive and enable new encounters, experiences and activities. Encourage and praise a person. Be supportive if a person makes a mistake and avoid criticism and correction whenever possible. When living with dementia, the way the environment is experienced can be altered. And it's not possible to know how the environment makes an individual feel. But by looking for clues and changes in behaviour, we can often gain some insight.
It's hard for me to remember what it's like to see normal and not have this in my life. It's your brain's ability to process and understand the picture that it's receiving. Design is very important. Colour is extremely important. So going into lifts is not my ideal situation because they do tend to put black mats. So when I walk into the lift, it looks as if there's no bottom to it. It didn't matter what type of dementia you had. People were talking about hallucinations. And my hallucinations is people's faces, distorted, you know, and different colours. And this can be really traumatic to me. So I have to learn don't trust your eyes. But that can be dangerous too. You know, there was an old saying many years when I was brought up, it's so loud I can't hear. And that is what is happening. Everything is so loud and so bold and so much that it's distorted. Food was awful because it was an automatic spit out. It's like taking bleach or something that's repulsive or off. So there was no thinking in this, it was an automatic response. I spoke to my consultant about this because I started to lose weight. I wasn't feeding or eating for taste, I was eating what does my brain accept, which was a total dining difference. I have olfactory hallucinations, phantom smells. So it's normal, awful smells. It's never the nice smell of coffee. The other one that is very common is the smell of burning. The fireman said most people without dementia would remove themselves, but people with dementia try to go to solve the solution we've found. So they go hunting the burning smell because we feel it's something we've done. A lot of people with dementia would say to me that they found touch and hugging quite painful. It's not just touch, it's when you're in the shower The water becomes painful to you. It's like jagging needles constantly hitting their body. It can be frightening, you know, but I have learned that it's nothing to be frightened of, and to see it as, well, you know, well, I think really it's just learning to live with this is the reality.
Every time someone living with dementia does something or says something, there is a reason, and it's our challenge to work out what that reason is. We can also use the senses to act as prompts. Think of a piece of music you heard that takes you back in time, or a smell of a perfume that brings to mind a person from the past. Introducing sensory engagement into an activity can help the brain locate memories we thought we'd forgotten. How do we support someone whose reality or time order is not consistent with our own? This time, think of factual memories and skills as books filed in order within a bookcase. The most recent memories are at the top of the bookcase by our head, and each shelf down is a different decade, with the first decade of life at the very bottom. The neater the filing system, the easier and faster it is to find a memory or a skill. Dementia shakes our factual bookcase, which begins to wobble and becomes a little unstable, and memories and skills that are most recent are likely to become dislodged and may start to fall. Over time, the bookcase becomes more and more unstable, and more books fall to the floor. And with memories and skills scattered, it might be hard to put memories in a consistent time order. Let's consider a situation. You're supporting a lady in her 80s. But the memory that's most easy for her to access is from when she was 28 years old. It's 3 p.m. and she's going to pick up her children from school. How do we address this issue? You could tell her that her children are grown up. There's no one waiting at the school gate. But how would this make her feel? How would it make you feel? She may become indignant and angry at not being able to pick up her children. She may start to behave in a very extreme way, wanting to achieve her goal at any cost. People often deal with situations like this by telling those little white lies. Maybe her husband's picking up the kids today, but at some level she may know her husband never picked the kids up from school. He was at work. It wasn't his job. Trust can be hard to build and easy to lose. A better way of dealing with situations might be to use distraction techniques. Firstly, it's important you acknowledge her concerns. What's important to her? In this instance, it's her children. Be reassuring and gradually move the conversation on. Do they look like her? What sort of things do they like to do together? You work with a response and steer the conversation to where they're comfortable. People may also show concerns in a more indirect way, such as asking when they're going to be picked up. What time are they going home? Maybe something in their body language will show how they feel. We need to take that response seriously. Are they enjoying the activity? Is there a trigger that has set off a feeling of anxiety? Again, distraction techniques can be really useful, and make sure you've addressed their concerns, reassure them, and then move on to a more positive conversation or activity. Always be honest and genuine with people. The next module is entitled Communication Strategies. Like the previous examples, we'll look at ways of communicating effectively with people with dementia. Complete the short multi-choice questions to move on to Module 3 and get access to the next short film.